Hey, darlings. Anya walked down the street and breathed fresh, frosty air with pleasure. After a whole day spent in the shower room of the archive, it seemed to her something truly unearthly and beautiful. Finally, she can go home and just rest, not sad about anything. Anna had been married for a year and a half, and all this time she was happy like a child. When she came home, in the understanding of a young woman, there was nothing better than a home in the world, and not a single man better than her husband, Oleg. They met Oleg at a young age. This event happened, oddly enough, not in the city where they were both born and raised, but in lands from here, on vacation on the seacoast. Then Anya remembers, turned her leg, and the boy from the senior squad called for help to get to the midpoint, which was not so close. The first awkward attempts to serve the support of the girl who jumped on one leg and desperately cried from pain did not bring the result. And that is why Oleg took the only right decision in that situation. No one has ever treated a girl like that, and she just didn't know how to react to it. But to watch how other girls from the middle and senior units were being watched by such envious eyes, she couldn't. She liked that this tall and strong guy, black and shameless, was carrying in his arms exactly her, Anya, Anilisk from the first unit, or Katia from the second. Moreover, she did not have it written on her forehead that she had turned her leg, because all the guys she met were amazed at what was happening. Having reached the destination, Oleg breathed, trying to do this as unnoticeably as possible for Anna, and confidently helped her climb to the second floor, where the doctor on duty was. After the girl was examined and put on a bandage, Oleg also gallantly put Anya on her hands and brought her to the detachment. Of course, the event of such a scale could not remain unnoticed in a close teenage environment. Therefore, by the evening, when Anna, with the help of the same Oleg, got to the dining room, the baby was teasing them everywhere. The groom and the bride, and the older boys and girls were just giggling. But Oleg did not pay attention to this. He took Anna to the table where the girls of her detachment were sitting and reminded her not to try to go anywhere after dinner. He will come and help. This is how their friendship began, which then, as time showed, first grew into sympathy and then into love. Oleg then remembers waiting for her after the disco, where Anna just sat on the bench and escorted her to the detachment. And then, when the outburst passed and the bandage was removed, he began to invite them to slow dances. Anya and Oleg quickly found out that they live in different districts in the city, and they are quite distant from each other. But this did not become an obstacle to communication. Young people began to call each other. Sometimes they could hang out on the phone all night, falling asleep in the morning, and they both liked it incredibly. There was a feeling of some kind of mystery, something forbidden and unusual, inaccessible and incomprehensible to the ordinary mortals who do not know what is happening between them. They seem to have their own mystery, and they carefully. It's not often that something serious happens. It's understandable. Their families were completely different. You could even say that diametrically opposite in many ways. For example, Oleg lived in a well-off family. He could boast of being a mother and a father. He never knew anything about rejection, and he was raised by a golden child, whom all relatives loved and cheered for. But there was almost no one to spoil Anya. Her mother raised her alone after her father died at the age of. The woman did not get married so that she could safely raise her daughter. Her late husband provided for them with housing. After his death, there was a small one-room apartment in one of the sleeping areas, so everything was not so bad. But the woman had a real problem with the earnings. Anya's mother never delayed her work for long. She got married very young, having only a diploma in the field of mechanics and a specialty in the trade department. Since then, as she gave birth to a daughter, she had no experience, no permanent place, so she was always looking for something, and she didn't find anything. Nevertheless, her girl was always clean, dressed, fed, and educated, because her mother was watching her carefully. Anna even studied in a music school in the piano class until the 4th grade, but had to leave because her mother's workplace changed again and there was no one to take the girl there and there. But with Oleg, everything was different. Oleg was a child's favorite and very long-awaited, in love with 2 grandmothers and 2 grandfathers at once. They were engaged in it, they gave him time. He was taken alternately to swimming, to basketball, to chess, so that he grew up and did not stop in the place of development. Oleg was followed by the assessments no less closely than, let's say, the world news. Yes, and the boy spent his leisure time only in the best places, where her mother was completely sure that nothing would happen to her boy. Of course, Oleg was not able to hide his acquaintance with the girl from the camp, and that's why the inquiries began immediately. Moreover, they continued to communicate with each other even after the shift ended and everyone returned home. In the end, grandmother and mother came to the conclusion that the child is growing. It won't hurt. The main thing is to be constantly in front of people. Otherwise, they will do something that you will not be able to eat with a big spoon. Oleg and Anya began to just communicate and be friends. From phone calls and messages, they came to joint walks in the park and to attractions, to the cinema and to the ice cream cafe. They felt comfortable in society, and young people did not see a reason to stop this communication. Closer to the senior school, in the life of Oleg and Anya, the first significant changes were noticeable. If Oleg was given prestigious higher education, and perhaps even abroad, then Anya did not promise anything like this in close. The girl could go to college as much as possible, as the former technical schools now call it, and leave it with the same diploma as her mother left in her time. Nothing more could she give. Oleg sat down to study textbooks under the guidance of experienced and well-paid tutors. He studied subjects whose success was not high, because he was going to please his parents with great results in their studies. But young people still continued to communicate, which caused the confusion of their parents. Why can't a daughter get used to meeting and hanging out with this young man, whom she is clearly not a couple? And Oleg's parents didn't understand what their boy found in such an ungrateful girl who can't give anything to her family. But time passed, and Oleg and Anya continued to spend almost all their free time together. They started their own traditions, fed swans on the bridge on Saturdays, and rode on a joke train on Sundays and never lost each other in sight. And then Oleg just confessed to Anya in love and found out that his feelings were completely mutual. In fact, it was already clear. They spent so many years together, literally side by side, meeting together both defeat and victory. They studied each other so well, to the smallest details of their character, and so deeply immersed in the nuances of each other's moods that they simply could not fall in love. This is how their love story began. Not the most ordinary, however. If the parents of a young person did not pay enough attention to who and how he spends time with, and soon time will leave her stone by stone, then now they have significantly changed their opinion. No matter what, they clearly saw that Oleg simply fell in love with this girl. Grumpy and even slightly spoiled guy who was just a teenager yesterday. Oleg was offered the most different versions of time travel, but everyone, like for selection, away from the city. Thus, his parents expected a standard situation to happen, with the eye down and the heart out. But, alas, Oleg did not agree to all these adventures. By his age, he had already studied his mother and father perfectly, and understood that if they offered him such a thing, then wait for a trick. And what kind of trick could be in this situation? It is clear that only one. To tear him off from Anna in the hope that time will do for them what parents could not do. But no, he will be stronger than their plans and their 7-minute desire to destroy the happiness of their only son in accordance with their mercantile interests. Oleg talked to his parents without any complaints, as an adult man. Whether they like it or not, he will stay with Anna. Just because. That he had grown up to the point where decisions are made independently, without looking at mom and dad, and he really likes her. Or rather, He will even say that he loves this girl without looking at her condition and her origin. Of course, parents could not simply accept the decision of their son, but it did not really bother him. It was more important for him that Anya did not cry and that she had on her face always shown a magical, charming smile. Annie's mother also had her own opinion on this, which she very carefully, fearing to violate that special trust between them with her adult daughter, voiced. She reminded her that in life there are extremely few happy stories of love when young people from different social classes, and that Oleg, most likely, will soon start to pull that she has no opportunity to have as much fun as he does, to dress as he does, to study where he studies, and in general that they lead a very different way of life. But Anna did not consider the mother's arguments extremely important. In her opinion, they and Oleg just have to be different from others, because they are special. They love each other. And this love, they grew up not from one-time meeting, but from a long and interesting communication. So Mom can rest assured, they have only happiness and joy ahead. Anina's mother really wanted to believe in this, especially since she sincerely wished for happiness for her daughter. But she knew too well how it happens in life, to buy a fairy tale, that the Oleg family will accept her daughter as their own, or at least as a worthy bride. And the fact that sooner or later a young person will be convinced that the parents were right did not have to be doubted. This has always happened in life. And the fact that Anna was lucky, as in the fairy tale, her mother simply did not believe. Nevertheless, when young people literally defended their right to happiness and to meet, they still found time for each other, and were incredibly expensive to each other. It's not that Oleg's mother was against these meetings from purely principled considerations. She understood that the boy had grown up, and that he would still have some girl. But she tried to convince her son that Anya was no more than a temporary option, until something truly standing and related to their circle is turned around, and then it will be time to truly fall in love and build your family life. In the meantime, if you have already decided and insisted on your own, meet it without any far-reaching plans. Although the young man, such statements only made a fuss. How is it that he will not build on his beloved no plans? He can and wants to do it very much. Anna will belong to him and no one else. Just because they both want it so much. I don't care about his parents about this in general, because he has grown up a long time. Anna was in the seventh heaven of happiness when Oleg made her an offer of a hand and a heart. Of course, it was very unusual. The girl was barely years old, and she studied in college as an interior designer. But Oleg insisted that they should marry immediately, because his parents are very considerate people. Having realized that his son does not want to act as they have dreamed, they can go to any filth to separate the lovers, and do not underestimate his mother in this regard. So, the most reasonable and even the only way out for Oleg was marriage. And there, as Krivieva sees it, in the end, they have known each other for a long time, and never even had a serious fight. So, can they not live in marriage for at least 100 years? Nothing will change for them, except that they will fall asleep and wake up under the same roof. Sometimes it seemed to Annie that all this was nothing more than a magic dream, and it will soon definitely dissolve. Reality has never been too affectionate towards the girl, rather, on the contrary, and she can hardly count on continuing her magical dream after she opens her eyes. But time went by, and Oleg did not disappear anywhere, and he was right there, next to her, with a ring in one hand and a plush bear in the other. And Anya agreed. She believed that everything would be fine with them, because they wanted it so much. The wedding was not too chic and pompous, but they didn't have enough money for more. Of course, Oleg's parents were extremely unhappy with the choice that their son made in his life. But they realized that they couldn't change anything, not in their competence. Therefore, they simply agreed that for some time, Oleg would be with Anna, who was completely incomprehensible to them, with whom the boy had known for so long. Luckily, he had a small one-room flat, inherited from distant relatives at the age of senior high school. Of course, it was not easy for them to come, because they were young and had no skills in running the household. About the fact that today is a day off, and they would like to spend it in bed, but they didn't accept it. She just didn't leave a single chance to her son and daughter-in-law to grow up in mud and stop spending time with everyday issues. But she managed to set up a young girl against herself that sometimes Anya even cried at her arrival. However, Oleg politely asked his newly married wife to be a little patient, and then maybe they will be able to agree with Mom that she should stop inspecting them. But nothing catastrophic happened. So small household troubles. Oleg's mom couldn't hide her irritation about the fact that now, because of this Anya, they will most likely have to bathe in her food, because sooner or later they will have a baby. She had such plans for her son. They would find him a beautiful girl, pick up a gorgeous couple, next to whom it would be a shame to see him in society. But he decided to go on the path of least resistance and act in his own way. Although, as her girlfriend said, "What do you lack in life? The son is watched, dressed and adorned, fed, and generally stays in a beautiful mood. So now what to worry about? They will split up or stay together, not her sadness, but only her adult son." But still, she could not stop checking in what conditions her boy lives. The bride seemed to her not to be completely without a hand, but almost everything Anna did was not as it should be. Let's say, she fried cutlets. And why are they so big? And the mirrors must be wiped clean so that there are no white stripes. And who taught Anya to fold the laundry? You need to be careful, step by step, each thing separately. And how does she fold it? When Anya helplessly looked at her newly married husband, Oleg just tried not to smile and made the young wife scary eyes, saying, "Don't hurt my mom. She is from the kindest intentions." Things did not go well with the studies, because Anya continued to study in college. Oleg was a student of a local university. He had impressive studies at UKVAB, and therefore very little time was left to work and earn. Without earning, it was impossible to keep yourself. Oleg began to study at a secondary school, although everyone who knew the young man was confused about this decision. But he tried to preserve his newly created family and get some education. Parents, of course, did not support the decision of their son, but it was already common. The first years of their marriage Anna remembered with laughter and, oddly enough, with pity for herself, a young one. She could not afford anything. No fashionable underwear, no extra plate, no entertainment. Of course, sometimes when she worked, they had a good time with Oleg, but there were not many of them. Although Anna was not used to living in such conditions, she, one might say, did not live in a different way. But her husband was much more difficult to endure the hardships and deprivations that marked the beginning of their marriage. He perfectly understood that after being deprived of funding, his parents just want to punish for self-government, that he did not listen to their advice and did not throw Anya out of life. This is the desire to compromise with the choice that his mother and father made for him and push the young man to everything to get money, and the beloved woman was happy. Anna finished her first year of school because the college program provided only 2 years of training. Now she was a certified interior designer and could earn good money from it. Actually, that's what she did. Fortunately, the internet gave her the opportunity to work on non-standard graphics and try herself in different organizations. Anna was so involved in earnings that Oleg even noted her efforts and said that if this continues, they will become very hard to live. The man himself was still working as a courier because he had his own car and some free time. Of course, this was not the peak of his career aspirations, but the diploma of a degree in a foreign country would not escape from Oleg anyway, so you could ride around the city. At one time, he was even proud that he was completely independent from his parents, although he had to become just a carrier and a delivery man for this. Gradually, life entered its own path. According to the mother's advice, Anna did not even think about giving birth to a child. They are not yet children, when they need to stand on their own feet. Oleg also did not object to the fact that for a while they will live with their wife, which is called for themselves, enjoy youth and freedom, allow themselves beautiful and reckless actions, contain their young family. Her earnings were regular and predictable, unlike her husband's earnings. Anina's mother could not decide for a long time, but then she tried to talk to her daughter about how good it would be for her to postpone it a little, on a black day, as they say. While she is earning, let her have some amount in her wallet or account, which no one can reach so easily. It's just that times change, and you always want to live well. But Anya was completely immersed in her happiness. She bathed in it and breathed in it, and therefore, she didn't even think that everything in life could change. Moreover, her husband's family actively convinced the young woman that with her marriage, she had literally won the jackpot, and now she needs to take care of everything so that everything with Oleg was good. Even her mother's warning about the fact that a woman cannot consider herself safe in marriage until she has her own roof over her head, the girl missed by the ears. After all, at the age of, the world still does not seem so hostile and unkind. She was firmly convinced that Oleg's love would not go anywhere with time, that his parents would also love her sooner or later, and that their small earnings while the family will only increase. It's not that Oleg's parents completely calmed down with the fact that now their son is a married man, and they also began to treat his choice normally, but in any case, the young nerves were almost not spoiled, if not consider the arrival of the blood sister with the inspection. Lately, even they somehow became not so rare, not so offensive. Now, it seems that the clothes have begun to fold properly, and the plafonds are cleaned as they should, and the floors were dried. Anna either got used to the blood, or vice versa, but the fact remained a fact. They were almost left alone, and at that moment, serious changes were marked in the lives of young people. Once Oleg came from school with a high mood and immediately hurried to report to his wife. Today, at the university, they distributed places for pre-graduate practice, and they chose me. Can you imagine? I was chosen by a cool, popular company. Anya didn't know what to be happy about. Or rather, she didn't understand that if her husband was chosen for the practice, then he would see in him a serious, serving a great hope of a specialist. However, what makes her husband so happy in this choice? There is a lot of work, even with the superiors, because I can't work. But the prospects? Anya, what prospects are there? It's just a miracle. Anya was already experienced in the matter of communicating with her husband and understood that now there is definitely some kind of it. And of course it was. Oleg did not walk around for a long time. Only there the schedule is such that I will not have time to do anything. Only practice and that's it. Of course, there will be a fee, but it's not big. It just doesn't happen otherwise. We'll have to tighten the belts with you, Anya. Aha, that's what we had to start with. They already had this during family life. They tightened the belts. Mostly because Oleg, who lost his job, just didn't have any good time to order. And then their little family. She was helping out Anya with her, even if not great, but still earnings. And now the young woman, of course, was hotly pleased with the fact that her husband will get a good job, not only where she will have to work. Anna agreed that Oleg should settle and sign the documents right there. Somehow they will be delayed. But it seemed much more difficult to stretch than she originally expected. Sometimes the lightning breaks on the jacket, sometimes the sole of the shoe will come off. Anya even remembered the good old wisdom that sugar, buckwheat, gasoline, and money in the house always end at the same time. So it happened with them. The girl took orders after orders, sat over them at night, crouched over new non-standard solutions, and the money went exactly through the fingers. Of course, now she felt on her own skin that it is much easier to live when the family budget is filled by both spouses. Anna's mother thought that this was wrong. She is not a beggar, and came to their house for free with a "So, let's give them time and opportunities to work on it." But they didn't want to offend Oleg. That's why she was working, working, working. The windows of the work programs of the palette with the scales were already in front of her in one big gray thing, and she was sitting in front of the monitor. Because in the morning you need to earn enough to pay Oleg for gas for trips to work, or buy something else. The pretext to spend her money in the family were always there. Finally, the practice of the man ended, but Oleg did not return to the courier. "Sometimes I'm already getting tired of such an impressive number of orders." "Well, it's okay, honey. We'll get along very well with you soon," Oleg promised her, promising to endure a little more. Moreover, if you remember, at the beginning of our family life, I also took a lot of money into the family budget. Of course, Anna remembered, and therefore she absolutely did not want to argue with Oleg. But it was harder to keep both him and herself for their salary. It was good that the roof was above the head, otherwise it is not known how they would have been twisted. And then Anya was unexpectedly lucky. She was offered to work in the local archive on the duty related to the digitization and restoration of old documents. Her education completely satisfied the employer, and now Anya could consider herself a happy person with full rights. She could earn not only money, but also a degree, which was also important for her. However, Oleg reacted to her new job in a very unpleasant way, first of all, taking care that she would lose the opportunity to work from home and do household chores. "Bunny, I just can't do all this. Wipe the floors, cook potatoes. You're somehow on your own, Ladushka, so that you have time. Because I'm doing a career. Here, there will be serious payments. I just need to push a little more, and here it is, a diploma, already in my hands." Anna understood everything. Therefore, everything fell on her shoulders, and the house and the earnings, without any effort, as the real wife likes. Only once, she somehow, being to the extreme degree of defeat and despair, complained to her mother-in-law that she does not have time because everything is literally on hold. But she replied, fixing her eyes on the aristocratic sharpened nose, "My little girl, you knew where you were going. Don't make a whole tragedy out of this. You got married without education, without training, with all the young people. What's there to say? The one who does better, earns. And as for household chores, I've been saying to you since the first day of your marriage that a house is a woman's responsibility zone. So there's nothing to be ashamed of, especially since thanks to my son, you were provided with housing." Yes, it was really impossible to argue here. Oleg's apartment helped them a lot, and that's why Anya continued to work for their common good. In the morning, in the archive, at the main job, then running home, with all legs, preparing dinner and feeding the spouse. Then, for the computer, to have time to complete a couple of orders in private, and get a little money. Oleg, meanwhile, almost finished writing his diploma. He spent almost all his time at home, but never took a rag in his hands. Despite this, Anna still looked at her husband with her eyes in love and could not breathe on him. Oleg did not lie. After the diploma was passed, state exams were passed, he was looking for the business he wanted to get into. The man's special thing of pride was the fact that he was able to achieve it himself, without using the numerous connections of his parents and other relatives. Oleg's wife Anna and husband celebrated the event quietly, in a family way. They were close. What else could they wish for? Stable and peaceful days flowed by. Anya felt as if she had died and fallen into paradise. The race stopped for no reason. The constant desire to earn money for the most simple needs, and the obsessive thoughts that one day she might not cope with the load on her shoulders. Oleg began to bring home the salary, and immediately there were money for some excess, like updates and good cosmetics. In a word, everything was just great. Even they are young, healthy, and in love. They have a good financial situation, and Anna is working there, where she can easily and calmly go on a maternity leave. So if not now, then when? Anna promised to think about this offer, although she understood what to think about here. Oleg can now earn money on them with the child and on himself, so why not? She didn't go home today, but flew like a bird. Today she will definitely tell her beloved this important news, and they will start planning the baby. How happy she is. There is no one who would be as happy as she is in the whole white world. Anya ran home when Oleg was not yet. She became used to cooking dinner. She took out the marinated meat from the fridge in advance and began to dip the pieces in the batter before putting them on a hot pan. I wonder who will be born first, a boy or a girl? It would be good to have a girl, a mother's assistant. Oleg, of course, wants a boy, then he can walk around the second one. He will be a wonderful dad, just wonderful. And in general, whoever is born with them, she will be happy to have a child of any gender. The main thing is that this is a continuation of her and her beloved man, because what can be thought of here? Oleg returned from work on time, but already from the threshold, Anya saw that her husband, let's say, was not in the mood. If not to say more, he was disappointed and sad. What happened? Just asked Anya, looking into the eyes of the man. Nothing good. Oleg replied in a gloomy tone, put his phone on the chair and sat down right on the pillow, dropping his head on his hand. Anna had never seen him so upset. Then, after a little while, Oleg told what had happened. His mother called him at work and told him that his father-in-law had a stroke. Now he was taken to the city hospital. The forecast is not clear yet. Of course, he will be treated as best as possible, but he is no longer young, and any insult at his age is a catastrophe for the body. If even a man is being rushed out now, then the chances that he will be able to live independently, take care of himself, and work are practically zero. Anya did not know what to cheer up and what to comfort her beloved man. And what can you say when such a situation is in the family? Nobody is ever ready for something like this to happen to a loved one or a loved one. Anyway, Anya put Oleg down at the table and began to pack up the things that the nurses in the hospital might need. Oleg was reminded that his father was taken straight from work, which means that he hardly has at least room slippers or soap with toothpaste. The girl wanted to take an active part in everything that is somehow related to the care of the grandchildren. Oleg will definitely assess this, she did not doubt. While Oleg was having dinner and Anna was going to the hospital, the spouses had time to discuss the news and somehow plan their actions. Anna decided that she would not tell Oleg about the fact that they could start planning a baby. After all, now the family has a grief of a man. He has a lack of replenishment and problems associated with this. He needs to wait a while, and then everything will be fine with them. Oleg called his mother several times, who was already in the hospital's reception room, and waited for the doctors to tell her husband about her condition. The woman was not just worried. Even through the phone call, she felt that she was in panic. She knew that all the money in the family was actually the result of her father-in-law's work. The man was still relatively young, earned well, and was able to fill the family wallet. Her in-laws, who also worked in a good place, had a lower income anyway. Anna put everything collected for Oleg's father in a bag, and they left the house. There was no doubt that the incident of tonight will change and correct the life of the whole family. But Anna did not know yet how deep the split will lie through today between what they had with Oleg before and what will follow later. In the twilight, Oleg and Anna quickly rushed to the gray crowd of the hospital building. He met them in the reception room by knocking on the doors and voices from the cabinets, as well as in the bustle of the relatives who did not understand anything, who were fluttering from the registration to the elevator and back. In the hospital, Oleg quickly chatted with his mother, who went out to meet them from somewhere from the emergency department, and then returned to his wife again. Their mood was gloomy, because any insult is dangerous. The mother-in-law almost did not look at the bride and tried to avoid talking to her. Anna even understood, in general, for what reason this is happening. It's just that this woman couldn't overpower herself and communicate with her in those moments when she was under stress or just a strong nervous tension. The psycho sweetheart kind of waved off Anna and made her completely alien. Well, the master is the master. The main thing is that Oleg loves her. Anna and her husband sat in the reception room until the very night, but they still couldn't find out anything for sure. All the doctors told them was to wait, and then after they were well slowed down. Upstairs, in the department, no family was allowed to be present in the ward. They only said briefly that it was necessary to bring medicine for tomorrow and sent home in Assuas. In general, it was even completely clear. Especially the man was sad, because it was his father. Oleg could understand, and Anya sincerely tried to do it, although he left her somehow when they got into the car near the reception room. A remarkable phrase. Thank you for your sympathy, sunshine, but how do you understand this? You remember your father badly. Does he think that if she lost her father in her childhood, she can't understand him and remember him? And even more, she can't sympathize with him? He has a good opinion about her. But she didn't say anything to not offend Oleg. It is still unknown what he was actually guided by before doing this. Maybe the whole thing is exclusively about that he was tired of this evening and was mortally scared of the future fate of his father? No matter what, and in this and in the following days, Anya tried not to annoy her husband in any way. Oleg was more and more gloomy and angry, either on her or just on the circumstances. He joked with her less and less, almost did not pay attention to her, and did not even try to caress her, kiss or hug as he used to do. Anya tried not to present any claims to him, because what kind of wife is that if she can't accept and understand that her husband has a difficult period in life? And on the other hand, is she to blame for this? Isn't she demonstrating in every way that she supports him in everything? Does she need to show Oleg that he is not alone? And didn't she deserve the simplest human relationship, just normal and quite friendly, without distorted irritation of the face? Anya understood this by the numerous fragments of the conversation, which she sometimes caught. Oleg talked little and briefly about her father's health, and again the insult was stolen in the heart of the girl. What did she do wrong to treat her like that? Oleg was extremely spoiled in communication with his wife. After work, he often went straight to his dad, spent time there, and then started to have dinner at home. Anna noticed that he began to lessen the discussion that it was necessary to have children and that they had everything just fine. She understood that now is probably not the best time to enjoy their family happiness, but is it really this depressed mood? Will pursue her husband forever, and she will be doomed to live with such a bull, from which you can't even get the word of kindness. And then her days off also seemed to cease to belong to her. It suddenly turned out that Oleg's mother is already old and can't entertain herself, which means that she comes to them in the morning and leaves only in the evening. Sometimes, however, they go to the market together with Oleg, to the stores, to the father, to the hospital, or to work, but the rest of the time the son and the mother walk side by side, like a thread behind a needle. Anya has greatly tamed this position of things. In fact, who would like such a thing? The mother-in-law seems to have grown up to her son, manipulating the fact that she can get an injection so soon, and that's it. Remember what they called it. Let her communicate and rejoice that she is still alive. But what was Anya happy about? From the very morning on weekends, she listened to the fact that she was a bad wife and a completely bad employee. And the mistress is so disgusting. And if earlier, before everything happened with Dad, Anya could quite expect that Oleg would understand and take over her from his mother, now there was no such hope. Or rather, she was, but died very quickly, after her husband shaved his wife a couple of times. Listen to what a smart man tells you. You will fight with your mother, but don't dare to fight with mine. For Annie, this answer was, if not a catastrophe, then at least something close to her. She could not understand what she did wrong, what she did not like. What happened? But Oleg didn't even intend to devote his wife to the subtleties of his thinking. He just believed that she allowed a lot of things to himself. And even he was completely in agreement with his mother, who said, "Mom is one, and a wife can be a lot. You can't run after everyone." At the same time, in most moments, everything looked quite decent, but something terrible and incomprehensible was happening inside. The young woman tried to consult with her own mother, but she could not get a clear answer there. Not that she didn't want to somehow cheer up her daughter, but still, the woman thought this situation was just a dead end. That now her daughter's sons-in-law felt her weakness and will try to push her away and bend her in everything. Because Anya is dependent on them, and it means that she has nowhere to look for help in this marriage. Meanwhile, Oleg became more and more angry, even though his father had already gone to the correction and even began to recognize relatives when they visited him. The young man became more and more critical and more offensive to express himself about his wife. So, for example, it was easy for him to hear something like, "I married you, I gave you a house, and you don't appreciate it," or something like that. This happened every time Anna reminded me that she, for example, had a birthday on these weekends, and she would like to spend it in nature with Oleg and his common friends. And it would be possible to invite his mother and husband to visit him on another day. Oleg rejected such a celebration option with indignation and demanded that she not think at all that now it is possible to celebrate something in such a situation and with such an incomprehensible forecast. Well, Anya had to make up with it. More than once and more than twice, the girl began to think that it would be possible to just leave her husband, at least for a short time, just because she is no longer able to bear this mockery of hers. And she does not want only offensive, crying words to fly to her address. But alas, she realized that in that case, if she left, Oleg would never accept her back. And so she endured. It seemed to her that it was worth waiting for this difficult moment, and everything would be fine by itself, as if by the moment of a magic wand. Anya did everything that was commanded by her to do in relation to the sick mother-in-law. Since her work ended on the half of the fourth day, much earlier than, for example, the work of her husband, it was her duty to run home and quickly cook something that could be transferred to the man's hospital. Most often it was broths and various, not too thick soups, and also all sorts of mashed potatoes and steamed cutlets. Not a very diverse menu, of course, but what to do if only doctors were allowed to eat like that? She had no desire to argue with them. Yes, and Alex and his mother were very much watching over the fact that the bride adhered to all norms in the diet of a man, as if she could think about poisoning a person on purpose, checking it for something suitable, but kept silent. And what could she say? Who would listen to her? Now the girl felt not just a housekeeper, but a cook, a confectioner, a hairdresser, and a laundry girl. Most often, the laundry from the hospital went to them, and her brother-in-law did not want her to take it. Oleg brought clothes for his wife, which were required to be washed and cleaned, and then dry, smooth, and fold with neat feet, so that the next day she could be transferred to the hospital again. This not only pulled Anina's strength, but she tried not to complain. From Oleg, she heard that the case was gradually beginning to go to the discharge, and the girl was sincerely happy for her father and her beloved husband. In the hospital, sanitary towels and seats were taken care of by men. Oleg himself would never be able to take care of himself, because the whole left half of the body of the man did not work, neither the hand nor the leg. When Anya came to him to the hospital for company with her husband, she traditionally barely held back her tears. She was scared and painful to see what in a couple of weeks a once blooming and not so old man turned into. But she just didn't know how to help him, and what to do for it. She could only say words of approval and promise that everything will be fine with him. It seemed to her that he understood her. He looked at her especially clearly at such moments, as if he was trying to say something. Meanwhile, on her account, Oleg and his mother had quite certain plans. They realized long ago that the man himself could no longer live to fully serve him in his life, and it was decided that instead of the hired chair, it would be her, Anya, who would do all this, because the bride is obliged to her husband's parents, no matter what anyone says or thinks about this topic. Anna herself has not been devoted to the details of the plan that directly concerned her. Oleg considered this to be completely unnecessary, given the fact that his mother convinced him that his wife generally does not bring any benefits. So let her at least look after her father. Is it hard for her, after all? Anya continued to agree with Oleg and persuade him as much as possible, both to him and to his mother. It was difficult for a young girl to accept the fact that the Oleg she knew and loved has always disappeared into space. And now this man will always dance to the tune of his mother. When she was simply put in front of the fact that she needs to be fired from the archives as soon as possible. But, unfortunately, Oleg did not pay attention to her tears anymore. Oleg's father, Yevgeny Mihailovich, was transferred from the hospital on Friday. By that time, Anya was already sitting at home on the third day and couldn't stop crying. She was crying. The young girl didn't understand how it happened that she actually refused her own life, and now she is forced to serve as a seducer to her husband and his mother. Actually, Anya already understood that neither the children she hoped for, nor the rest together, nor the normal life they had with Oleg. Not because he is bad or she is bad, but just because Oleg was completely influenced by his mother. She, as a strong and experienced opponent, waited for the moment when the balance of power changed and struck. And now there is nothing to parry. The blow turned out to be crushing. Oleg and thoughts did not allow that it would be inconvenient for them to live together in one room in his apartment. What are you talking about? He fell on his wife if Anya tried to prove to him that it would be uncomfortable for her to take care of the children where they live. Where is he now if he is sick? Right, mother says, you are without a fatherland, and you have nothing human in you. Anya resisted, cried, tried to prove and invariably suffered from this abyss of misfortune. No, they will not move there to the mother so that the sick father has his own room. So she does not want. And this is her apartment. Will have the desire to be counted by the mother, and to rent a large apartment to provide Yevgeny Mihailovich with a separate room. They will not again, because it is expensive. And now only one Oleg will work. Or has Anya already learned to count money, or just forgot who owns it? Oleg won't hire a nurse, because Anya still doesn't earn enough to cover her cost, plus the risk that she and her dad will be badly treated. Because since they are one family, she has to take care of the patients, and there is nothing to arrange concerts here. There is nothing complicated about it. Even a teenager can easily cope with leaving for his father. And Anya had to make amends for the fact that she was made a servant, free, and therefore completely lawless. In her opinion, Oleg should not have the right not to visit his mother, not to just walk around the shops and give time to himself, not to relax and just lie in the bathroom. All day was literally scheduled by minutes, and his husband and his mother controlled what she was doing with his children. From such close attention, Anya wanted to speak out her voice, but there was nowhere to go. Feces and fed it with a spoonful of semi-liquid purified food. That is, the only thing that could still somehow assimilate into the body of this person. Then they were exercised in talking. The girl had to learn several lessons from the internet, and to deal with Yevgeny Mihailovich the way she could, even though she had a long way to go before she became a logoped. Then it was time to take the medication and new hygienic procedures. And then lunch, a short rest, and again in a circle. In addition, Anna could not forget about the need to keep their apartment clean, wash, cook for her husband, and also for herself, and host her in-laws. As for this lady, she often came to visit her husband. Private affairs. So that she could not sit on a chair in the kitchen or just transfer her spirit without any instructions. The young woman felt as if she were caught between the hammer and the anvil. The bride was not able to sit on a chair in the kitchen or just transfer her spirit without any instructions. The bride was not able to sit on a chair in the kitchen or just transfer her spirit without any instructions. The bride was not able to sit on a chair in the kitchen or just transfer her spirit without any instructions. The bride was not able to sit on a chair in the kitchen or just transfer her spirit without any instructions. The bride was not able to sit on a chair in the kitchen or just. Before, while they lived with Oleg only together and the father-in-law was still completely healthy, her mother-in-law defended her, but not so much. She could show hints or say it softer. It was still unpleasant, but not to the same extent. Patience, in general. And now, from her instructions, advice, interference, and other ideas, it literally became stuffy. Sometimes Anya felt her heart compressing in her chest, and she couldn't take a full breath. These special effects were accompanied by every second mother's visit. Anya was tired of making excuses for the love her husband had for her. He said that if her mother complained about disrespect from her side, she would just leave her. And there she acts as if she knows. He will not be interested in this anymore. You understand, Oleg said when they sat down to have dinner after another concert on the applications of the arranged by the mother-in-law. She is my mother, and this is forever. So you have to make up with it. Anya tried to justify herself with all her might. She didn't want Oleg to think badly of her. But alas, her efforts had little effect. Rather, to say nothing at all. Oleg found an excuse for all the words of his in-laws. Well, she said it. She said it. So you really care for your dad, if Mom thought so. How do I know what she meant? You need to think better and do so that next time she was happy with you. Try something. And the girl tried. She tried her best, but she was never satisfied. Nothing that was done to her hands was good enough for her relatives. Everything was bad and with a bad hand. Everything was extremely unsuccessful. And how could her son choose such a wife? Once she asked this directly from Oleg, even in the presence of Anna. And Anya froze, waiting for what his beloved would answer. A couple of months ago, she was just sure of it. Oleg would laugh, would press her so hard that her bones would crack, and would declare that he made a great choice. And now he just smiled crookedly and said in an apology tone, as if not fully understanding the subject of the dispute, "Well, what can you do with me? I was actually a child back then. The first love is like this." To say that it was a blow to Anna's breath is just not to say anything. Then, with the blood that the bitch smirked at her face, Anna managed to somehow hold on and not cry, although she really wanted to. But as soon as the door closed behind her, the girl threw herself at her husband with accusations, without having the slightest strength to keep silent. And how to understand it? Oleg, how to understand it? Do you think I'm just a regrettable mistake of my youth? Like, I was a little bit of a coward, but I didn't have enough mind to give up responsibility? Is that so, my beloved? Or not? It seemed that for a moment Oleg was trembling before the pressure of his wife, who had never been able to talk to him like that before. Anya, his always quiet and carefree Anya, suddenly became bold, like a tigress and just as dangerous. But the man quickly took himself in his hands and found what to answer to his wife. And you don't consider our relationship a mistake. When men are respected, they just do what the family needs. And you are all trying to refuse and insult me. Oleg turned on his heels and went to the bathroom to shave. And Anya froze in the middle of the corridor. Even she, yes, began to slowly understand that she was really wrong about Oleg. No, on the one hand, everything was fine with them, until they changed their life circumstances and priorities. Because the key word was, since it became known that the father-in-law had an insult, Oleg every month just breaks through another bottom in his behavior. And she? And what is she? She simply obeys him, instead of learning to defend her legal interests. And to earn on her own, She also humbly allows him to command herself. And okay, only he was in charge of what to do to her, and whether it is gentle enough for her to change the diapers for the lying man. But his mother is also very ungrateful in this direction. Oleg doesn't protect his wife from his mother at all. He believes that even this is not required. And where does Anya get the strength to live every new day? If it turns out that she doesn't sleep normally because she gets tired of the sick and doesn't eat properly because there is no appetite for such a life and doesn't even have time for herself, how to live on? Today's scandal happened because that the Sveker did not show the results of the rehabilitation that the Svekrov would like to see. Well, and Oleg, of course. During the time that Yevgeny Mihailovich was put in a hospital bed, the business of his firm was significantly weakened. They did not exclude that this was due to the fact that the founder of the company was ill. Yevgeny Mihailovich had an amazing sense of reliable counteragents and favorable directions. Now, when everyone was run by his assistants and other people, the company had almost no profits and contracts that the business could boast of earlier. Therefore, the problem of a possible reduction in turnover arose before the family, and even, this was said only with a whisper, bankruptcy. It was his bankruptcy that tried not to let the blood flow, and put it in him. She decided that she would make her daughter-in-law to have a rehabilitation of her sick husband, and then everything would be fine. But it won't be, because Anya just can't do what she never learned to do. She can draw perfectly. Do you want to draw something? No? What kind of request do you have with her? Oleg, meanwhile, shaved himself cleanly, changed into a fresh shirt, and was like this. The girl had long suspected that someone had appeared on Oleg's side, because he had already complained to her many times that it was impossible to stay in the house because of the sick father and his wife who had lost him. At the same time, the man was not shy to claim that she had become unattractive for him, because he always walks without mood. How can he take it if every minute a sick person is with her? She was sad and crying, and didn't even remember what it meant to be young and attractive. That's how she waited for gratitude for not letting her father pass on to her. That's how sincere she was. You can't say anything. Anya smiled sadly and went to prepare the medicine for the evening. Oleg, she knew it from experience, will be back at midnight and most likely at fun. We need to give everything to Yevgeny Mihailovich in advance so that he would fall asleep and the drunk son would not disturb an old and unhealthy person. Anya sadly carried a rag on the body of her father-in-law and barely held back from crying out loud. Where and in whose company is Oleg now? Why does she spend the days and evenings with his father? Why does he not help her and does not make her work easier? And what did she forget in such a family? Does she need such a family, or is it generally called some other word? Let's say she rents a room for care for an elderly person. That will be more accurate. But not only for care, but also for cleaning, for washing, for cooking, for shopping, and many other services. Is it too little on her side? Is the contribution not too great? The phone rang suddenly. Anya even shivered. It's strange. Who could she need this for? Her mother-in-law had long been taught to call by the fact that every time she rang the phone, something like, "You haven't cleaned up your father's room yet. You're already talking on the phone?" She decided that it was not necessary to complicate her daughter's life and annoy her son-in-law, and because of that, they now rarely called with their mother. She never had any close friends to talk on the phone. So, a couple of colleagues. But they also knew about Anna's family situation and didn't call. So who could it be? The girl took the phone out of the bag in which he was lying in the evening after she returned from the store. The number that was displayed on the screen was not familiar to her. Here is the hoax if someone just got the number wrong. And for her, even such a passing conversation with an unfamiliar person, this is already a real holiday. But an unknown interlocutor will never know this. Anya pressed the call. "Hello?" the girl said, without even suspecting what kind of information she is now under surveillance. "Hello, Anna?" At the end of the wire, the girl spoke to her. By voice, approximately her same age. Anya seemed strange that an unfamiliar girl is calling her, who also apparently knows her. What could it mean? And then the news fell on Anna's head, and somehow it was a trap, as if she had no other way of spending time to let her know about everything. Her Oleg, it turns out, had been a lover for a long time. But in fact, she did not think that such a smug, blue-eyed brunette would spend all her time at the bed of a sick father. And even with a hateful wife in a hug. He needs me. The girl who claimed to be Valeria convinced her. Just like me. Bright, independent, gentle, and passionate. And you just interfere with him. He doesn't want you to confess so that you don't leave and don't leave his daddy. But I think, why do you need this? Don't waste your youth on him. Don't worry about Oleg. I will pick it up and won't let it disappear. So pack your things and goodbye, baby. I hope I won't hear about you anymore. Oh, here it is. This cute, but with moral principles, a girl, Lyra, just offers Annie to leave the territory without a fight. And give it to Oleg? And in fact, why would Annie not do that? What keeps her here? Love. Ah, but you don't have to make fun of yourself. This is no longer love. It is now even worse than addiction. She is alive in a burning body in a closed space, almost all hours a day. Oleg considers this her duty, but at the same time he is probably abusing. So maybe we can stop the torment? She should not sell her youth and health for the roof over her head, which she did not even see, but heard this evening, is simply very right. The girl, and she probably do not know how right she is. Yes, and so, if you think about it, it's very good that she received such a warning now, and not in 5 years, when from the youthful anger would already be some dusty memories. The decision came to Anya instantly, but the desire to turn him into life. She was missing for some reason. No, of course, the first impulse was to just throw things in the bag and disappear from this apartment where the eyes are looking. But why? Oleg will not come back soon, because he is now surely with Valeria, and she, Anya, can afford to live with sense, feelings, and rest, even if it's just half an hour before leaving. She deserved it in the end, and now she needs it. Anya did not hurry to drink tea in the kitchen. He seemed to her not as tasty as always. But the blood sister was always proud of the fact that on the table of her son, there is always only a special high-altitude variety. Apparently, she was somewhere calculated, just like Anya was calculated with Oleg. But it's okay, it's fixable. Of course, it's a pity, but what can we do? She agrees that while she was taking care of his paralyzed father, Oleg was somewhere behind Lyra. The girl did not wish it. Anya finished drinking tea and quickly began to throw one thing after another into the bag. All her poor wardrobe flew into a black sports bag accompanied by memories and disappointment. Oleg chose these jeans from the over-the-top waist, so that the young wife would measure them. And this bright orange scarf she wore on vacation, when they went to the beach together and had a great time there. And this dress she bought herself specifically for work in the archive. I wonder if they will take her to the same place after such a sudden dismissal. Probably they will, if she explains the reason for her return well. The conditions of labor are good there, and it is not the fault of the archive paper that she listened to her husband and resigned. She should not have done this, of course. But now what to think about? After the fight, as you know, they do not wave their fists. Anya packed a bag for accompaniment of thought, also about the fact that the beauty of the soul is nothing. In all, nothing guarantees marriage. Well, she tried to do everything for her husband. And how did it end for her? By the appearance of Valeria? It's good that the girl had enough of her mind to sow the nearest competitor in this way and call her. I wonder if Oleg knows about this call? And when he finds out, how will he react? The girl closed the lightning on the bag. It seems that she has collected everything. Of course, I don't want to go back to Mom, but where to go? Moreover, even a small piece of her apartment will now seem like royal treasures to her, because there are no lying patients there who she, Anya, should actually hand care for, to the detriment of her comfort and life plan. The girl hooked up her bag on the strap, hung it on her shoulder, and was about to leave. Then, however, she grumbled, returned to the room right in the street shoes, and was standing on a helpless man who was lying right in front of her on a special functional bed. Anya remembered how a couple of months ago, when he was brought in, she begged Oleg to come up with something with furniture so as not to put this bed, a symbol of pain and helplessness, right in the middle of the room. But then he quickly found a way to close her mouth and insisted that her father would sleep like this, because it is more convenient to take care of him in this way than in another way. And now she looked at Yevgeny Mihailovich, who was lying in white, and thought about what would happen to him. On the one hand, what is she actually up to? She fulfilled her mission, her main function, for which Oleg left her in the family, did not drive her out as he threatened to go outside. She worked out. Honest, daily work, worked off all these rags that were in her bag. Even if we don't remember that all these things were bought for her personal earned money, she still worked them off. So why is it so hard for her now? Why can't she just turn around and leave? Not forgetting to tell her in person on the phone that from now on the problem of taking care of her husband lies on her own shoulders. But she's just not like that. Oleg really knew who to talk to and who not. And he talked to her in an orderly tone exactly because she is soft and submissive by nature. Because she can't just slam the door, turn around and leave the apartment. You need to think about what to do with this person, not a fact. Far from the fact that someone wants to do this, that everyone is interested only in his money. Without his business, the whole well-being of the family will end. And then, without daddy's money in the bank, Oleg will not be interested in any Larry, just because she will find a housekeeper for herself, both richer and more promising. Anya thought hard. She saw that Yevgeny Mihailovich was thinking too. The blue ones, like the sun's eyes, were wide open. He may not have understood all the truth, but he still saw that the bride was not in vain. At night she collected her bag and stood in the room, dressed and dressed. She was already ready to open her mouth to start explaining to him that she would now leave, and then his wife and son would watch him as he called again. Well, what is it? Even an explanation with a sick person will not be given. Where is this even useful? Maybe it's a reason for Larry to need something? For example, to make sure that Anya has already left the inhospitable blood, and that the form of the water is clean from now on? The blood relative number was displayed on the screen, and Anya quietly stopped. No, not this. This was not enough to talk to her now. She doesn't want to. She just can't stand it. And the phone kept calling and calling. Anya could not just pick up the phone. She did not want to. The trills sounded in silence of the standard panel, one like a dream requiem. When the bell rang for the third time, Anya decided. Only she immediately put the phone in the loud mode. Let Yevgeny Mihailovich also listen. It is useful for him to understand who to deal with when Anya refuses to help him recover. And it seems to be going to happen tonight. They killed him. She was bleeding so hard that she even pulled her phone off. They killed Olezika. It's all your fault. He was shaking his shoulders because you treated him badly. And now they called me. The next few minutes of the conversation completely cleared the situation. Oleg didn't stop at the right time to tell someone in the bar that they had been robbed, because he thought that he had not looked at Lyra in a wrong way. And Gromala just turned out to be a person who did not have too much knowledge of the rules of behavior in society and took out which had no business. She took care of Yevgeny Mihailovich for some time, until the investigation took place and there was a need for it. Then the young widow received money from the parents of her late husband for her inheritance and was able to fulfill her own dream. She took a small one-room apartment in the mortgage. Anna settled back in the archive, but she works a lot on the evenings and weekends to pay off the debt to the bank and not refuse anything. Oleg's parents sold the business and left the city. Their future fate, and the girl was never interested, She was not ready for it. After a while after the tragedy, she began to meet the guy she met at work. Simple, modest, unclad Guy Pavlik from a poor family liked Anya with her sincere smile and a completely transparent desire to make her life better. Of course, Avzak's girl is not in a hurry, reasonably assuming that first she should get to know her family better, but still the joint time of young people pleases. Anina's mother believes that her daughter is completely right, especially since she has already burned herself so decently. She is incredibly sorry for her young and strong girl, which had to go through such unthinkable obstacles in order to gain her personal happiness. Although the life experience tells the mother that it is with such a man as Pasha that her girlfriend can build a happy family in all respects, especially since Anya will now have a roof over her head, and therefore no one will dare to reproach her. With Valeria, who called her then and thus made it clear about everything that happened after, Anya did not meet in person. She was not present at the trial on which the murderer Oleg was tried. At that time, she was already trying to switch to something else. But from all this story, the girl took out the right priorities for herself. You can never allow yourself to exploit and impose anything on yourself. It ends like this: a collection of things in order to leave and never come back.